Hello and welcome to our Retire Early lifestyle. Today we're going to tell you some cold, hard truths about solo female travel. We're not trying to convince anyone of anything. What we do on this channel is show people what it's really like to live abroad. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, and some of it's downright ugly. That's the balanced view, or as we like to say, the other side of the story. Let's get right to the video now. Here's why solo female travelers cannot deny these cold hard facts, and here they are. The first cold hard truth is, there are sexual predators in every country all over the world, even in countries where crime is minimal. There are sexual predators waiting for the right opportunity to strike his prey. Women alone. The second cold hard truth is, solo female travelers are very much alike in that they say the same old worn-out cliches that not only put themselves at ease, but other women as well that have not yet taken the big leap to travel alone to a foreign country. But here is what we have to say about that in a nutshell.
I'll tell you, ideally, the ideal situation for a woman alone is to travel like with a church group where there's men present that are for the deterrent value. You know, that's my personal opinion. You don't have to listen to that. As savvy as you are, I still think it's a good idea to have male protection. I have to look at it like this. If you were my daughter, what would I tell you? And if you were my wife, what would I tell you? And if you were my mother, what would I tell you? Because to carelessly mislead people is not something that I would sleep well at night thinking that I might have done something like that.
The travel world has blown up with solo female travelers. World Metrics has said that 61% of solo travelers are women, while only 39% are men. Can you believe it? They prod one another on as if it's a normal thing to travel to a foreign country by themselves. The truth is that about a decade ago, very few women traveled alone abroad. It's the influencers on the internet prodding each other along like an alcoholic pushing everyone around him to have another drink and be merry. Feminism is like that. It's an addiction. The common theme is to sweep crime under the rug and justify all the reasons they and others should travel by themselves to foreign countries. But none of these justifying factors is going to save them from harm, which is our third cold hard truth that is undeniable. Here's what she says. She says, I can take care of myself. I know how to fight back. I feel safe. I'm an experienced traveler. I'm travel savvy. I blend in. I never go out alone at night when I'm traveling. I don't need a man to protect me. Nothing will happen to me. I'm in a safe country. I've traveled to this country before and never had any negative encounters. I wear pants and long sleeve shirts. I know how to handle machismo attitude. I dress like the locals. I speak the language. I wear a fake wedding ring. I purposely appear confident when walking around. I stay out of certain countries where women have been harmed. I only go to first world countries where the crime is less. The cold hard fact is, not a single one of these worn out cliches is going to save a woman that is being targeted by a criminal. And I could easily contradict with facts every single one of these worn out cliches, but we're not telling anyone what to do. We're just providing some truths in the hope of saving a few from harm.
So it's not a complicated story. It sounds like a really neat thing to do, and I'm sure a lot of people do it and don't have any problems, you know. But single black female goes to Costa Rica for her birthday and never returns. It turns out that it was sexually motivated, so rape was the motive.
Many of these solo female travelers have blogs and YouTube channels where they make videos and write articles on their blogs, influencing more women to travel the world by themselves to very unsafe countries such as the Middle East. It all sounds so wonderful, good, and right. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right? However, as I do research for this video, I find hundreds of women who have been sexually assaulted while traveling abroad. Influencers telling women to travel solo is obviously a huge disservice to all women and those who love them.
You know, beautiful gal goes down there, Costa Rica, for her birthday, and it turns out, well, first it was like, well, it was the security guard did it. So the guy that you think is there to protect you, and then later it turns out, as I get more and more information, the actual hosts of Airbnb are being implicated. And so it was not just the host, but also the security guard. So once she set this in motion and set this trip aside and did the reservations, that's it. Her fate was sealed. So the very core people that you're trusting, right? And this all goes back to the fact that, you know, young woman traveling alone.
Let's pretend that a woman alone can take care of herself. Just to make an obvious example, imagine a country where men have grown up believing that a woman should wear head covering and or a face mask and not show any skin whatsoever. And there are severe punishments in those countries if a woman is caught without those things. And then a beautiful Western gal shows up. What a sight for sore eyes. You want attention? Well, you're going to get it. Even if you dress like the local women, your mannerisms and the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you eat, the way you buy things, everything will give it away that you are a foreigner, no matter how confident you behave. It's really precarious. We're wondering why a feminist would even want to go to the Middle East by herself. It's clearly an oxymoron. Doing research for this video, I came upon another blogger who was sharing her opinion of the 5 worst countries being the most dangerous for women alone, and here is her list. South Africa, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, and Iran. But just understand that it's not just these 5 countries that are dangerous for women traveling alone. It's all countries. There is so much more to it than just picking out worst countries for women or safest countries for women and they'll be good to go. There's too much of that on the internet. Here is what this blogger shared on her blog. She's telling other women to still go to these dangerous countries. Iran? Wow. Here's what she says. 5 worst countries for women traveling alone. That's what we just talked about. Her countries that she just mentioned were South Africa, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, and Iran. She does have a disclaimer on her blog that says this. The countries in this list are those that rank the poorest on the Women's Danger Index that collects the top 50 most visited countries worldwide. Naturally, this does not mean that you shouldn't travel to these countries. In fact, it's the opposite. You should still go, especially if you want to. But just take note that you must exercise caution due to the country's bad record or attitudes toward women. If you're still not confident, it doesn't hurt to travel with a companion. So how do you like those apples? A double-minded person is unstable in all their ways, says ancient wisdom. But here you see the blogger talking out of both sides of their mouth. On this side, it's dangerous, but on that side, well, it doesn't mean don't go. But then again, maybe it does, says the blogger. It appears to be politically incorrect and or taboo to just tell the truth and actually not encourage taking chances with your very own life. After all, it's not the writer's life that is at stake. It's the person reading it. There are so many bloggers and vloggers urging women to take the big leap and go abroad alone. Many are going to very dangerous countries such as Egypt, India, Iran, Morocco, Bahamas, Caribbean, and all of the Latin American countries that are on the RAM's top 10 list. We've lived abroad for 13 years, and we have to tell you that the local women in Latin American countries are generally not out walking around on the streets alone. They're with friends, brother, husband, or their parents, unless they are business women who are walking to a nearby cafe on lunch break. And that brings us to our fourth cold, hard truth. The many different ways women alone become targets and victimized in foreign countries. These truths are non-refutable, but we're not telling anyone what to do, just bringing the facts of how women can get harmed and why. Women alone become targets when hiking alone in the wilderness, walking alone on the streets, drank spiked with a drug in a bar or the hotel, getting won over by a good talker, followed to hostel and he waits for the opportunity, on the beach alone, eating out in restaurants alone, hiking with a woman friend in the wilderness, kidnapped and trafficked, harmed by hostel owner, harmed by the taxi driver. How it can happen goes on and on. Many solo women travelers bring up how safe Japan is. Sure, some countries like Japan is safer for women alone, but that doesn't provide guarantee. It provides less of a chance something bad happening to her. But even in Japan, hiking alone can be risky because there are different situations and different circumstances where even safe countries can become dangerous for women alone. It's like playing Russian roulette or the lottery. Everything's okay until it's not. During my research for this video, I came upon one writer blogger saying, instead of telling women the thing they should avoid while traveling solo, we need to tell the man to stop attacking women. Hello? This is the silliest thing I have ever heard. Are you joking? You can't tell a mentally ill person to stop doing something. Catcalling is one thing where men sometimes try to act cool in front of their friends, but criminal sexual deviance is a mental and spiritual problem. Anyone who would sexually attack anyone is a sick puppy. Do you really think you can tell a rapist to stop raping women? It makes no sense anyway because the law already tells them that very thing, not to do it. That's what makes it a crime, and yet it still happens. Solo female travel is blowing up with more and more women traveling alone. Hotel desk clerks are now telling some women to put more clothes on, even in places like the Philippines. It was not always like that, but with more and more assaults comes the countries needing to lay down regulations for appropriate dress attire. I'm a female solo traveler. These are the 5 places I will never go back to, including a major European capital. Let's talk about those. She shared with her TikTok viewers the 5 countries she would never travel to alone again and why, and here they are. Manila, Philippines. First up on our list was Manila, the capital city of the Philippines, which welcomed over 14 million tourists in 2023, according to the country's tourism board. Wow, that's a lot of tourists. Explaining her first choice, Andrea said it was definitely not safe. My hotel wouldn't even let me go to the cash point outside. Well, that must be the ATM. They told me to put more clothes on and not wear a sleeveless top because there were so many men outside, and it just wasn't safe for me to walk alone. I think this is happening much more than we think, which brings me to the 5th cold, hard truth, and that is some women simply do not make the best attire choices when it comes to traveling in some of these foreign countries. How the locals dress is just one of the many cultural differences that solo travelers from first world countries should research before embarking on their journey. Will it save her from getting sexually assaulted? I think it will make her less of a target because she will be noticed less if she is dressed modestly. Plus, it shows she respects herself, which could deter catcalling and being followed by a criminal sexual deviant. Moving on to the rest of her countries that she said she'll never travel to again. Paris, France. Andrea chose the French capital of Paris because, as she recounts, I was almost mugged twice on the metro, even though the city has a large police presence. I was also cautioned about pickpockets and advised not to go out alone at night. Cartagena, Colombia. Thirdly, she chose Cartagena in Colombia, which she says she loved, even though the men were pretty aggressive. She added, "The reason why Cartagena is on this list is because I was warned for taking a video out of a taxi by police, as they said it could get snatched away by a local unexpectedly." Key Cocker, Belize. Now, she said the men are very, very aggressive here, so much so that I had to pepper spray a man that was touching me physically in an attempt to get me to enter his restaurant, which he tried multiple times. San Salvador, El Salvador. She said this is because she was almost kidnapped by two men in San Salvador while walking next to some construction workers. She says they weren't gang members, but they had wired spool in the back of their truck. They pulled up next to me and grabbed me by the arms and attempted to pull me inside the vehicle. Luckily, people heard me screaming, so we were able to convince the men to let go of me. And that was her 5 countries that she says were very dangerous for her. Most women are very lucky and come home safe and sound like this woman has, and thankfully she is sharing her experiences. Having said that, other really risky countries for women travelers are the Dominican Republic, many of the Caribbean islands, Jamaica, Bahamas, Africa, India, Latin American countries such as Panama, Costa Rica, and Colombia, and some of the Middle Eastern countries are all very unsafe for women alone. Also, some Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand has had its fair share of sexual assaults against women. Just because a country is not named in this video does not mean it is safe for the solo female traveler either. You can't really get a firm grip on most dangerous countries for women traveling alone because the analysis is all over the map. Women say the countries they had a bad experience in are the most unsafe countries, but that does not necessarily mean those countries are the most unsafe because, as we said earlier, all countries can be unsafe for women alone just because she is alone. Even men that are traveling alone are more prone to being robbed and are violently attacked in some way, even sexually assaulted. When you're alone, there are less or no witnesses. That's how the criminals think. Women having the courage to come out and talk about what happened to them and share the countries they had bad experiences in are great because it makes more women become aware of just how prevalent sexual assault can be for women alone, and maybe they will think twice. But she's free to choose what she wants to do if she wants to go abroad alone. And our 6th cold hard truth is the vulnerability of a woman alone can be a tempting allure for a criminal sexual deviant who doesn't have the common sense to think that he could be put in prison for 10, 20, 30 years for sexually assaulting a tourist or for life for harming her to no return. Violence against women alone is as old as the hills, and the first recorded instance began 6,000 years ago when Adam's wife Eve, who must have been alone at the time, was conned into going down the wrong path. And a bit later in the chronology, one of Abraham's nieces was raped. That is historical. That, my dear friends, are words that no solo female traveler can deny. There are some really sick people out there. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that, it's okay. At least we can agree you are taking a risk every time you travel alone in a foreign country or even in your own country. And that is our final cold hard fact. Just remember, we never tell anyone what to do. We only balance out all the hype and sensationalism that is so prevalent nowadays on the internet. Okay, everybody, we hope you found this video informative. Stay safe, be blessed, and bye-bye.